Welcome to the Finance Show with Joe. He's Joe. I'm just some schmo. And today we're talking about immigration. Oh, this is going to be a fun one. I'm looking forward to it.
This episode has nothing to do with race or racism or anything along the lines of that. It is going to come up. We're going to be extremely gentle about it. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about why migration has become such an issue in Australia in regards to the property market and not because of anything else. Okay.
These are economic reasons, not because, I just don't like them.
Okay. We really need to tap into this because from what I've noticed, every news report, every Reddit thread, every single thing about property has all led back to the same cause. So, Michael.
Yes.
I'll let you take the helm on this one.
Why is migration such an issue in Australia? Because historically, this is something that Australia has done for, I want to say maybe the last 30 years, roundabout, to prevent ourselves from falling into recession. It's what prevented us from copying the worst of it from the GFC and whatnot. So why is it a problem now? Is our history coming back up to haunt us, or is it just like not really preparing for the future? Why is it a problem?
Well, yes and no. Our history is coming to haunt us because between 2020 and 2022, we weren't letting anyone in. We weren't letting Australian citizens back into the country. Planes, I think, had one person per 4 seats to come back to Australia. So airlines were running at an extreme loss, bringing people back to Australia. And they were just saying, F this, okay? We're not even going to allow planes to go to Australia. And it was an extremely limited amount of people being allowed back into the country. I know this for a fact because my wife moved back from New York to Sydney.
Sorry.
She moved back from New York to Sydney in 2021. And she told me, she goes, on my flight, I think there was 20 people. I had to stay in hotel quarantine for a couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. I remember
So there was minimal people allowed into the country. But because there was minimal people allowed into the country, there was also a minimal amount of resources, human resource allowed into the country as well, which dropped our unemployment rate all the way down to 0.9%.
It was something ridiculous, yeah.
It was so hard to find
Almost
people.
as ridiculous as the cash rate at the time.
It was so hard to find people to work.
Yeah.
And because it was so hard to find people to work, it just caused this issue where, number one, you had people that were employed not being efficient, which has dropped our efficiency all the way. I think our GDP is the lowest amount amongst all the OPEC countries, like producing, as in
Per capita GDP.
Per capita GDP was amongst some of the lowest. So they said we need to open up Australia and we need to start letting people in just to be able to take on jobs so we can increase the unemployment rate, so we can increase competition, so we can increase efficiency.
Yeah.
At the same time, they also cut building approvals. So
we talked about the inefficiencies last week with approvals at the local level and whatnot, and the bureaucracy involved and the politics involved.
That's exactly right. So the issue that's starting to stem from migration is, yes, we need more skilled migrants. Yes, we need more people to come to Australia. Yes, we need to increase our population. Our population's 28 million people, 27, 28 million people.
Something like that, yeah.
And we have the same landmass as continental US.
Yeah, I think so.
The United States has a population of 400 million people.
Yeah. Look, it's the big difference is that the US doesn't have just one big desert in the middle of it.
It's very similar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In landmass. Okay. I'm not saying we have to have 400 million people.
No. It won't be possible.
But I'm trying to say how underpopulated we are.
Yeah,
we're a younger country. We're about 300 years younger. And, you know, all across America, you've got places like Michigan and Cleveland that have CBDs, but they're not really CBDs. They look like Wollongong. No offense to people in Wollongong, but hey, it is what it is.
I was going to say no offense to people in Cleveland.
No, we're offending them. We're going all out. But that's the reason why we've had to increase our migration so much. We need people in the country. We need to start really focusing on our population levels because we're not going to be able to keep up with the rest of the world. Right now in Australia, well, in February, we let in 100,000 new people. Okay. This isn't just like, I can't even explain. How many buildings or how many new dwellings do you think was approved in the month of February?
Oh, I think I saw it was something like 7,000 to 8,000 or something like that.
8,000 new dwellings. 8,000 new dwellings. We've got 100,000 new people and 8,000 new dwellings. That means that it is now expected that 12 and a half people live in every dwelling. what house has 12 and a half people living in it, 13 people living in it? You have to ask yourself the second question behind that. That is just for the new people. That is just for the migrants. That doesn't include our own population increasing and our population aging.
I think the big thing is the aging population more than anything, because we're following the trend of most developed Western nations. Actually, not even Western, just developed nations. Once you reach a point, you had an aging population, and we're not really replenishing it. You're seeing it in Japan, you're seeing it in a lot of places in Europe and stuff like that, and that puts strains on the welfare system with the pension and obviously health and stuff like that, and that's just increasing. That's contributing to our current cost of living crisis.
It's a massive contribution to it. So you really have to ask yourself, what direction is Australia headed in, and can we start keeping up? And it's really starting to look like no, we can't, because as we discussed on the last episode, you need $295,000 to be able to afford a house in Sydney. That's your average household income, just to afford a normal house, like a $1.6 million house.
Yeah.
So we have to start really asking ourselves, why are we doing this?
So I saw a report in the Australian Financial Review. Yeah. They just did it in January, so a little outdated, but still. Their theory, due to the sharp rise in the working age population thanks to migration, we were able to avoid recession towards the end of 2023. So 2023 was not a recession year. 2024 is still up for debate, but we'll see. So basically, that's how we avoided recession. And their theory was this migration will ease labor and skills shortages that would prolong inflation, because remember, immediately after COVID, inflation was what everyone was talking about, and cost of living and stuff. And that's where we're at. And so basically, Aussie families have it harder. They have it much harder than usual. It's short-term pain for long-term gain. That's the working theory.
So I'm completely against that as a working theory, because the reason why our inflation is so high is because our government is spending money in ways that we've never seen them spend money before. Darwin has recently approved this new housing bill where, the Australian government's going to come in and provide social housing at $5 billion. And then I looked at the report, and it was some insane statistic that they're building the houses for in Darwin. I think it's like $780,000 per dwelling for a house in Darwin that's considered social housing. So social housing a lot of the time is the lowest form of housing. It is 4 walls, brick veneer, maybe even timber with some cladding. And
go drive through Mount Druitt, you'll see what we mean.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You'll see the old social housing out that way, but you will seriously see these houses aren't built to spec. They're not built to, modern features. You don't have a fireplace, for example. You might not even have working air conditioning in a lot of these properties. So the Labor government is spending money in a way that is out of control. Now, every government spends money that is out of control, and they're always, trying to assist their lobbyists in one way or another. But we really need to start holding the government accountable, because that is the reason why. That is such a huge reason why our inflation is so high. We're spending money without having checks and balances. Adam Bandt went out there and spent $963,000 on private jets. This is the leader of the Greens Party. Net zero. They're bashing on every single door. They're bashing on every single door saying, hey, we need to achieve net zero for carbon emissions. But this guy's taking a private jet to go to parties in different locations.
Yeah, I only saw the headline. I tend to not look into those things just because I'm sick of it.
But that's the thing. So we really need to start asking ourselves, where is the inflation coming from? Because I know for a fact, and I'm working with people at the ground level and at the middle level. I'm not working at the highest level yet, but a lot of the loans that I deal with are between $150,000 to maximum $8 million. And I'm just talking about residential mortgages right now. I'm not talking about the business loans or the commercial loans, anything of that nature. But with a lot of those loans that I am working with on a personal level, it's people just trying to get ahead.
Yeah.
It's just people saying, hey, I can save myself $300 a month. That's my kid going to childcare. A lot of the inflation is imported. Petrol is at $2.20 a litre.
Which is it's kind of wild that we import our petrol.
But it's even wilder that the Australian taxpayer or the Australian public is being forced to pay this sort of amount.
We're one of the most taxed countries in the world.
Stamp duty. To buy a property, you need to pay stamp duty for the transfer of cost. Now, the Liberal government got rid of this, and they tried to introduce something where it was yearly stamp duty, and then the Labor government literally scrapped that entire thing and got rid of it 9 months later as soon as they got into power. But that's a massive thing. Why didn't we charge it yearly for people that were purchasing their first home? Why are we taking it away? and you realize a lot of it is because of government spending.
Yeah, the government heavily relies on taxes from property purchases and transfers of sale and stuff like that. Like heavily, it's almost like 50% of state revenue.
Look at tolls as well.
Yeah.
So for me to drive,
I can't believe the tolls in Sydney.
For me to drive from from Illawong, where I live, to Alexandria, do you know how much I pay in tolls each way?
Oh, like $20 or something?
$28 each way.
Yeah.
So $56 a day I'm spending to get to and from work.
And this is why I catch the train.
Without petrol.
Yeah.
Without petrol being included. Petrol's $2.25 a litre right now.
For me, I consider driving a luxury now, which a lot of people don't because Sydney is not really built. We built it kind of like an American city where like driving is kind of the default mode of transportation rather than somewhere like Europe where trains and buses and stuff.
So you're saying this, okay, driving is a luxury. I agree.
But no, that's just how I feel about it now. I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. It's just...
But you are correct. But unfortunately, for a lot of people, you have to drive.
Oh, there's no choice, yeah.
Because right now, I don't have a train station in the 5 closest suburbs around me. There is no train station. And even if I did have a train station, I don't have a train that can directly take me to the office in Alexandria. I have to go from Sydney. Oh, sorry. I keep saying Sydney. I have to go from Padstow to Redfern or Riverwood to Redfern. And then I have to switch to be able to get to the office.
Yeah, I have to switch at Central to get to Green Square.
How insane is that? That even if I want to go for the items or I want to go for the things that are more affordable, I can't.
Yeah.
I physically can't. And that is just because of the place that I was brought up in.
Yeah, and it includes places, especially in Western Sydney, where there's few and far between like stations. If you're lucky enough to be at one of those suburbs that have a station close by, then yeah, you can catch the train and no problem. But if you're going to like that northwest and that southwest region, actually the southwest is not bad, but the northwest, forget about it. You have to drive.
But don't we see this as a problem? That instead of investing in more trains, in more tunnels...
Well, you could argue that they are with the metro and stuff like that.
But it's still not built, okay?
Yeah.
2024, the year of our Lord, it's still not built. You're looking at all these items and how much it costs and stacking up. And then on top of that, we've now increased housing and the cost of that. Yep. So we need to really start considering to ourselves, how are we going to fix this affordability crisis? Have you traveled much? Have you been to Paris? Have you been to New York?
Yeah, I've traveled to Europe and Japan.
Okay.
I've never been to America.
We are starting to become a lot more like Japan.
Yeah, I've noticed, based on the articles I read, a lot of the issues. Japan's further along in these issues. Same thing with South Korea as well. They're very similar. So aging populations, lack of housing, labor shortages just because people are retiring, and then there's welfare stress with taking care of old people because what are you going to do? Just throw them in a ditch? Like
that's exactly right. You look at a city like Tokyo, you look at Okada, you look at even parts of Kyoto. I know it's a really old part of Japan, but they're vertical moving.
A lot of these, especially South Korea and Japan, it's not quite like China where you've got that space to sprawl. Not that China really does that, but they're very limited in their space, so they have to be very efficient with it. So they went tall before we did.
Okay. Thank you for understanding that point, because this brings me to my next point. We're not approving these sorts of buildings.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really understand why we don't build taller buildings. I know that there's a level of tall building where it's not great for both environmental reasons and economic reasons, where it costs heaps to upkeep and stuff. But there is a sweet spot, I think. I think isn't it between 10 to 13 levels? That's fine. That's very sustainable.
Yep. But they haven't done that. You go to Paris and everything, I don't think anything is over 13 levels.
That's a historical reason. They want to preserve the historical setting and facades of Paris. So that's different. But I agree with you, yes.
But it works.
Yeah.
And this is the issue with the migration right now. And this is the issue with Australia right now. We've got the government spending too much money on themselves. Way too much money on themselves. And they're increasing our taxes because.
When you say that they're spending money on themselves, can you extrapolate on that a little bit?
I mentioned it last week. There is a pool of sick leave that council workers can take.
Yeah.
There is no overtime. There is no cross. There's no crosses. There's no checks. There's no check of balances when it comes to council because they're not in there for long enough for people to hold them accountable and say, "Hey, why are you spending so much on this?" or "Why are you spending so much on that?"
They also don't have a bigger profile, so no one's going to get mad at them as readily.
That's exactly right. And then we're spending so much money on travel for a lot of these politicians.
That's kind of part of Australia. Nothing's really close outside of the cities. Like even in the cities, if you need to go to Penrith from the CBD, it's going to take you a good hour and a bit.
I understand, but this is a whole other level. Okay, to it, there's another level. They're not checking what people are charging. So Sydney Airport is privately owned. I think Macquarie Bank still owns them or someone else still owns them, but it's a privately owned airport. It's not government owned like other airports in the world. To park a plane overnight, it's usually supposed to be about $2,000 an hour.
Right, okay.
Guess how much they charge the Australian Labor government?
I'm going to say like $10,000 or something.
$6,000 an hour.
Yeah,
$6,000, and no one checked it.
Yeah.
No one checked it. They go, "Oh, it's okay." Bang. They have an unlimited balance sheet to be able to afford or to be able to pay this stuff. So it's like we need a government to govern the government, or someone to check in on this stuff.
It's kind of part of that anti-corruption stuff that that they were trying to put. I don't really know where we're at with that. I know there's a state one. So they were trying to do that on a federal level because the previous Liberal government is kind of why they lost the election at the state level, despite being.
No, go for it.
No matter how you feel about Gladys Berejiklian, two previous premier now, she was done for corruption, and she wasn't the worst offender, as the Royal Commission found out. The Liberal government, state government, we don't know about the federal one, but anyway, the state government was found to be doing a lot of dodgy stuff. The Labor government as well, they're particularly in the pocket of the Gaming Commission, although so are the Liberals, but to a lesser extent. So there's no win, but because there is, what is it, ASIC?
ASIC.
Yeah, ASIC. Because they have ASIC and stuff like that, we were able to catch that and prevent that. So now they can't do that as much, but there's nothing preventing that at a federal level. So there's no one who polices the police,
And that's the issue that we have right now. We have an Australian government that said, okay, we need more migrants to be able to afford our stuff so we can raise tax levels so that we can somehow continue on our cushy jobs. It just doesn't make sense to me anymore. The highest paid job in Australia is basically a politician.
MP. Yeah.
Okay, because
especially federal MP,
their salary might not be as high as what we discussed in the last episode.
I don't forget the lobbyists.
But they're allowed to be compensated for all of their expenses, travel expenses, office expenses, any of their staff that works for them, they're expensed by the government. For example, right now I own my own business, okay, and I have to generate my own income and I have to pay my taxes and everything. But to have every single person employed, okay, I need to be paying them a salary. So I have a break-even analysis and I need to go through that. I don't have a break-even analysis. They go, "Oh, how much do you cost?" "Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, you're hired."
Yeah.
What? It's absolutely insane to me. So why has it become such a big issue in Australia? Why has it become such a big issue in property? It's because right now we don't have the checks and balances on one item, okay, where the Australian government is charging us so much to be able to keep, all these politicians employed, and their salaries are so high. But the other issue is they're not efficient enough in getting things done.
We have no reason to be.
Exactly. No one is bashing down the door. Well, now we are, but no one previously was bashing down the door saying, "Why is my approval taking so long?"
It's interesting, and it seems a very Australian thing to do is that we just cop it, we just take it. What the government says, we just do it. Like you look at other places, France raised the retirement age by
2 years.
2 years, riots. I'm not saying right or wrong, but the public reaction that happens in Australia. Oh well.
Yep.
What are you gonna do?
Boiling frog.
We don't care. Yeah. I don't know why we don't care. We say that we're a laid back country, but we're not, because you can't even have a beer anymore and make noise after 1 o'clock.
Yep.
I don't know. There's something about the Australian populace right now and the Australian attitudes to government.
I think the biggest issue is we're so far away from everything else. Well, what are your options if you live in Australia? You're going to pick up and move to the States. It's 15 hours away. What if things don't work out? It still costs $2,000 to fly back to this country.
And also the US is not, it's not great right now, economically speaking, in terms of setting yourself up and having that safety net that somewhere like Australia has.
So I think the issue really lies in we see how great Australia can be because it's so far from everything, but we're not living up to our potential. And I think that's where people are really starting to get upset. And I think that's why I'm so upset about a lot of these things, because on my end, I want to help more people. I want to be able to help more people get more houses. I want people to be more financially stable and better equipped for their long-term future. And they can't be. They can't be because we are lacking in efficiency. You said it before, we're a laid-back country. I said it in the last episode. Look at the buses, or look at, any political stance. These things cost money. And when these things cost money, someone needs to get paid, and they don't care as long as they can fulfill their promise.
That was like I was talking with my dad about this during the COVID lockdowns when they were handing out JobKeeper payments. And we were like, oh, this is sweet. I work half the time and I get paid the same amount, which was awesome. But we were both saying we're going to have to pay for it eventually, whether it's immediately after the lockdowns or sometime later. But we're paying for it now. We're in a cost of living crisis.
We are genuinely paying for it now. We were printing, I can't remember how much we printed, but every Australian was getting $750 a week tax-free.
And then there were the businesses like Harvey Norman that just abused it. It was several big corporations as well.
They killed it. They made a killing. Woolworths was the most profitable it had ever been, and so was Coles.
And still they are.
I think I've pissed Michael off to another level. If anyone viewing this, you've seen Michael's face just go more and more red as this episode has gone along. These are my recommendations on how to fix it. And these are my recommendations on what you can do to protect yourself in the future, to set yourself up for retirement, or to be able to just set yourself up for the future.
Yeah.
Number one, buy a fucking property. Okay? And that's easier said than done. But when I say buy a property, I'm not saying to you go and spend $1.6 million in Sydney. That's impossible. You are 18 to 25 years old. Guess what? You probably want to go on a few benders before you go and spend money on a property.
Yeah.
I know. Personal experience. I jumped off a sign at McDonald's into a bush. I didn't need to do that. I did it to impress my friends. I was 18 years old and I was stupid. When I got older, I started to realize, hey, I need to invest in property. The wise man learns from his mistakes. The genius learns from the mistakes of others. Learn from my mistakes. My mistake was I didn't invest in property soon enough. If I did, I probably would have been worth a lot more money than I am now. Now I'm sleeping 4 hours a night and working 20 hours a day just to be able to get to the point that I should have been at 8 years ago. These are the suburbs that you can really get ahead in. Number one, look at Campbelltown.
Oh, yeah.
Undervalued as all hell.
Absolutely.
35 minutes away from Sydney CBD, and you could still purchase properties in that area between $500,000 and $800,000. I'm not talking about apartments. I'm talking about freestanding houses, land.
My cousins live out there. They've got a very big, they bought ages ago, and I imagine it was cheap as chips at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still cheap, and Campbelltown is I know some people give it a bad rap and everything. It's not that bad or anything like that. It's a nice place.
Campbelltown is as rough now as Menai was 20 years ago. I grew up in Menai. I can get back to that stage, 20 years ago. Yes. Okay. Keep your wits about you. Don't do anything stupid, or even looking at certain investment in the infrastructure there. Yeah. Have you seen their shopping center?
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
It's
MacArthur and stuff.
Yeah. They've got a beautiful restaurant district in the shopping center now. They've invested heavily in trying to build that community up. Yeah, yes. Is it still low socioeconomic? But guess what? You can really snatch up some opportunities there with some positive rental yield.
This is a lot of people. I don't want to tell you that you're wrong for wanting the best, but you can't start there.
Yeah.
Like, I know you want to live in Bondi. You can't. You have to, especially in the current housing crisis. Look where you can buy, not where you want to buy. Look where you want to buy once you've, you don't even necessarily have to develop a portfolio or an investment portfolio or anything. You just need to get ahead and just get some sort of financial stability. You can tap into that equity in Campbelltown. You don't have to live there forever if you don't want to. Who knows? You might even like it.
Is your name Joseph Dawood, or have you just been listening to me for that long?
I think you're starting to rub off on me, man.
I think I'm interviewing myself right now. I'm just having a conversation with myself. Michael is 100% right. Don't look at everything as a full stop and this is going to be your property forever.
Yeah.
Look at it as a journey. And guess what? You have to get active on your journey if you want to live to be 90 or you want to live to be 100.
My parents did the exact same thing. My dad's bought in Mount Druitt. He bought a property in Druitt, sold it. We moved to Parramatta. Then we lived with with my grandparents in West Pennant Hills, and then he managed to buy up in Glenorrhea near Dural.
Yeah.
It's just step by step.
That's exactly right.
That's what you got to do.
We live in a generation of instant gratification, and you really have to prolong that gratification now in order to be able to get ahead. Another suburb that you could start looking at around Sydney is look between the Sydney and Wollongong areas, and look at areas like Helensburgh. Look even further south. Look at Corrimal. That's still on the water. Look at Fairy Meadow. Okay, you're not quite in Wollongong yet, but you're right next to Wollongong. Look at Sutherland. Sutherland, you could still get some good options through there.
Yeah.
All of those suburbs, Waterfall, even Heathcote, Engadine, for a lower amount.
Engadine. Engadine Macca's.
That's right. ScoMo. But you are purchasing at a lower cost, or you're purchasing for a lower amount.
Yeah.
To be able to take advantage of the Sydney prices. You look at those suburbs and you look at the way that they behave, they follow the same trajectory as other suburbs do. If not, they perform better because you're buying at a lower price point.
Yeah.
But, yep, you go.
No. I was just saying, don't get mad at the headlines and the stuff. And like, don't start getting mad at migrants either. It's not their fault that this is happening. There are ways that you can, like we've been saying, like build yourself up, look outside of where you want, look where you need to go.
Yep.
Like some people are trying to use this as an excuse to bash people of different backgrounds. I've seen quite a few people start bashing Indian folks, which is unfair.
Completely.
Yeah, like it's not their fault. They're just taking opportunities that are given to them. They want better lives just as everyone else here. That's why they moved here, you know?
That's exactly right. And if you look at these individuals, a lot of them are the hardest working people that you'll find in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all they're trying to do is get ahead.
Yeah.
Just like the rest of us. So, and guess what? They are willing to do the jobs that we aren't a lot of the time.
Yeah. And like, I've seen there's two conflicting headlines that I have from the Australian. So we got a Murdoch rag. I can't stand it. But like, this is the kind of stuff. Don't buy into this. One headline they did in January 2024. Australia close to recession as immigration numbers jump ahead by 30 years. All right. Then, just a couple months later, student visa slowdown could push us towards a recession. So which one is it? Too many people or not enough people is going to cause a recession? Just focus on you. Don't get mad at these people coming from overseas. It's not their fault. They're not causing this.
They are not. The issues are stemming from the housing crisis, the level of bureaucracy to get anything approved, and basically government's charging way too much money or way too much in taxes to be able to get things along the way. Another thing that I want to highlight to be able to protect yourself or to be able to prepare yourself for the future, because we're talking about migration, we're talking about the cost of living, we're talking about how much things have been increasing. Look interstate as well. For example, Geelong, Victoria's second city. Okay, about the same size as Wollongong. But you look at Geelong, you can still snatch up houses there for about 450 grand.
How's Newcastle doing?
Newcastle's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's another city that you can really tap into. You can buy properties on the cheap and you can achieve that exponential growth. And that's what we want.
Is there work there? We're just talking to our producer. Works from Newcastle.
Okay, it's mid. So it exists, but you got to look for it.
So yeah, it worked towards, it's easy to say go buy regional and go to the second cities. But the reason why the property prices in these capital cities are going up so much is because, frankly, this is where the work is.
Yep, that's exactly right. The last thing I want to highlight to really get ahead or to assist yourself, and you're going to look at me and you're going to go, wait, what? How's that one? Go look at your subscriptions.
Oh, yeah.
I've been wanting to highlight this point for a few episodes. I forgot to mention it a couple episodes ago. But watch your subscriptions, because you can be saving yourself $250 to $300 a month without even knowing it. I went through my subscriptions the other day and holy Lord, oh my God, I had like $400 in subscriptions racked up a month.
What would you subscribe to?
No, listen to this. I had iStock Photo. I didn't realize iStock Photo was costing, they increased my prices to $150 a month. I used to spend like $50 a month, and this is for marketing materials and marketing purposes.
Yeah, it's literally stock footage.
Stock footage, $150 a month for stock photos. I can go on Google and find these stock photos easily now, or I can use AI to generate them for me.
Yeah.
Number two, Disney has increased from like $10 a month to $25 a month. Netflix has increased from $13 a month to $25 a month.
Yeah.
Stan, KO Sports is $28 a month.
KO is the biggest fucking ripoff of all time. fucking hate KO, but I have to have it because I love Formula One.
But do you hear?
Once again, fuck you, Murdoch.
Do you hear this amount of money that we need to spend
Yeah.
just to be able to get to like a basic level? Internet. Oh no, I can't cut that off as a subscription. But
internet is just required now.
no. But I had a gym app, and that was costing me $9 a month. I had a sleep app that I didn't even know I had. Okay, a sleep app was costing me $4 a month. You think to yourself, $4 a month or $10 a month, all this kind of stuff.
It's always building up.
If you've got 40 subscriptions at $4 a month, guess what? That's going to be $160. And guess what? You're probably not paying $4 a month. It probably said $3.99 for the first month, and then it switches to recurring $3.99 a week. And then you look at your statements, $3.99, that's fine. That's $16 a month. So watch your subscriptions so you can get ahead, because I'm telling you now, that is going to kill your bank account faster than anything else in Australia.
Here's my pro tip as well for saving some money too. In similar vein, buy an old Xbox One, stay home, and buy games for about $3 to $5, or get Game Pass. You will save so much money by staying home and playing.
Can I ask you something about that? So my favorite games, I haven't played a video game since 2009, 2008, and that's just me naturally. I just got bored.
Yeah,
and I couldn't be bothered learning more games and these controls and stuff. Apparently, games are expensive now. Somebody in Japan spent $39,000 on the EA Sports or something.
Like everything else in the world, video games are more expensive. Cost of living and inflation has hit that too. It's now a minimum of $100, $110 for a new release game.
To buy the game.
Yeah, to buy the game. And then if you buy a game like FIFA or any of the sports games from EA specifically, they are going to try get your money through microtransactions, which will cost. I mean, there's no ceiling.
So can you explain the microtransactions? We've deviated so much on this episode, by the way. We started with migration, houses, how much these buildings cost, and now all of a sudden we're on microtransactions from EA. But it all comes back to the same point of how to set yourself up for the future and why these things have become issues.
Look, I know your FIFA Ultimate Team, you want to buy a pack. Let's just say a pack costs $5.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately, that's not heaps of money.
Yeah.
But you want to keep buying those packs.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to stop you from buying those packs either. Also, I don't know if they're still doing the packs. I know there was an NBA game that had a literal slot machine in it.
Yes. I played that one.
Yeah. That had literal slot machines, so you could get, I don't even know what you could get, cosmetics, maybe players. I don't know, but it's gambling. Like it's literal gambling. It's banned in Europe. And I think actually Australia loves gambling, so it's not banned here.
Yeah, definitely not banned here. But it's just, if you want to get ahead, if you want to start looking at Australia as a whole, you need to start understanding why these costs of living are going up so high, why we have such an issue with certain things. You need to look at, okay, why has migration happened? Well, we didn't let people in for 2 years, and we needed to replenish that. That's why Labor came out with a net migration of 4 million people by 2028.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. That's why we're letting in 100,000 new people per month. You need to understand why the building crisis is happening. Why are things so much more expensive, or why are the houses so much more expensive? It's because there were dodgy developers back in the day that were just getting things across the line, and then all of a sudden their houses or their buildings started to fall apart.
Yeah.
Okay, we had the self-certification that wasn't working, and that's why there's so much more bureaucracy. You need to understand, hey, how can I get myself ahead? Because right now, at present moment, I don't think I can.
Yeah, it's real difficult.
You need to look at it and go, okay, this is how I can get ahead in life. This is how I could build for a better future, for a better Australia. And the way that it is looking at the different pockets. Australia's going to keep growing.
Yeah.
Don't think of anything as a full stop. Don't look at Bondi and think to yourself, oh, the property's worth $4 million. I can't afford that, so I'm never going to buy a property. Go look at the other suburbs. Go look at places you can invest in, because they're going to grow at the same rate. There's only so much land in Bondi, and that's going to keep going up. There's only so much land in Botany, and that's going to keep going up. There's only so much land in Parramatta, and that's going to keep going up. So
just look at New York, Manhattan Island. They literally have nowhere else to go.
And they keep going vertical.
Yeah.
And the prices still keep going up, but that's it. You got to look at it like that. And at the end of the day, follow the same steps of the people in the past. Look for land, look for houses, or look for amenity. The closer you are to amenity, the more expensive the property will become. The more land you have, the more expensive the land is going to become. And at the end of the day, with a growing population, this is how you're going to be able to set yourself up for success and for your financial future.
Yeah. And you need to be willing to make sacrifices.
That's exactly right. That's a big one too. We deviated so much on this episode.
We did, but I think we got a lot of good stuff out of it.
And I feel as if people are starting to understand, okay, why there's so much migration. Why has it become such an issue in Australia?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like we've been able to help people understand, okay, these are the issues, but this is how you can protect yourself in the long run. Because in 10 years' time, we might have another migration issue.
Mm-hmm.
And in 10 years' time, you want to be ahead of where you are today.
Yeah.
And just by doing those small things, canceling your subscriptions, looking for those little pockets of investments, speaking to a broker. I haven't even mentioned myself. Speak to a broker and find out how much you can actually borrow, because you'll be surprised. I had somebody contact me the other day and he's like, oh, I've got this, I've got that. And I sat there with my jaw and I was like, dude, you can afford like a $1.8 million house? He goes, what? And I go, yeah. And I go, what have you been doing? And he goes, oh, me and the wife, we putting money aside for a holiday. We've put aside like $95,000. I was like, what? I was like, that is insane. Like, you can literally afford a property of this amount. So speak to someone, speak to a finance professional, because they can get you in the market earlier and you can start making your money work for you. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
As always, my name is Joe. Here's some schmo.
That's true. I am some schmo. Did you not hear me go on about microtransactions earlier?
And we want to thank you all for listening to this episode of The Finance Show with Joe. If you need any help with your personal finances, visit us at www.itsimple.com.au. If you need help with refinances, if you need help with purchases, if you need help with debt consolidation, I know that's a big one, guys. Speak to us. We're more than happy to assist. Thank you again, and we can't wait for the next episode.